How the hell did we not get a reference of the dead parrot skit from Monty Python's Flying Circus? That is ridiculous to me. Creatures, released in 1997 and is directed by Robert Young and Fred Shipsey, who have also directed such films like Vampire Circus, Jeeves and Wooster, A City in the Dark, Mr. Baseball, and 6 Degrees of Separation. Yeah, apparently Robert Young was originally directing this, but then this movie ran into a bunch of production problems, so Fred Shipsey was brought in to finish the dang thing. So you gotta love when there's problems with directors on set. It makes everything great. And this film has a returning cast from A Fish Called Wanda of John Cleese, Jamie Lee Curtis, Kevin Kline, and Michael Palin. And we're talking about Fierce Creatures today because it was a PayPal recommendation from two of my biggest supporters on this channel, Mr. and Mrs. Rusted Beetle. You two are always great with your recommendations. You attached this one with your recommendation earlier this week of A Fish Called Wanda because this film had the same cast and crew, or majority of the same crew of A Fish Called Wanda, so this is what they were calling an equal, not a sequel or a prequel to anything. It's just an equal film with the same cast about 10 years after A Fish Called Wanda, which is kind of cool. Rollo Lee is the director of the Marwood Zoo, which is owned by billionaire stockboy Rod McCain, and he sends his son and newcomer to the team, Willow Weston and Vince McCain, played by Jamie Lee Curtis and Kevin Kline, out to the zoo to help drive revenue. And one of the big ideas they have is to make all of the animals at the zoo fierce. So instead of showcasing the adorable little lemurs and anteaters, they want to give customers the experience of seeing deadly animals. It's kind of all wacky and out there, but it all leads to a conclusion where there's embezzlement, murder, mistaken identity, and everyone getting a share of the money. Yeah, giving plot synopses for these two farcical films with this cast of characters is very difficult because there's a lot of just stuff that happens because it's funny, or stuff that happens because it's out there and it's shocking and it's risque and it's taboo, and that's the only reason why it's there, and the actual plot in here kind of gets missed. But you know what? I guess I'm weird. I like this one way more than I liked A Fish Called Wanda, which is shocking to me because A Fish Called Wanda was nominated for Oscars. Everyone gave it critical acclaim and everyone shat on this movie. But for me, I have no idea, but it's flip-flop for me. I'd rather watch this one than the other one. And I think the big thing for me with that is that the pacing of this movie is much faster, it's much more refined, and it's just more enjoyable. When it comes to farce, there is a pacing, there is a rhythm that you need. And I felt with A Fish Called Wanda, it just kind of dragged for me, and I wasn't invested in anyone, and the pacing, the delivery of the jokes seemed very ba-da-da, ba-da-da, here's the punchline, and funny? Whereas here, everything is moving very quickly, and there's a revolving door effect with characters coming in and out, and a bunch of sexual innuendos, and the pacing is just clipping along. And when the pacing clips along like that, I'm much happier. Plus, I also think John Cleese gets a lot more to do in this movie and is showcased a lot more than he was in A Fish Called Wanda, I feel. And I like John Cleese. He's one of my favorite actors when it comes to comedy. And of course, I love Monty Python's Flying Circus, Holy Grail, Life of Brian, and he's a big cornerstone of those films. And also Michael Palin, too. He's very important when it comes to Monty Python as well. And I feel like they shine a lot more here. Michael Palin has the opportunity of doing what I know him for, and that's just kind of riffing and going off on tangents like you see in Holy Grail or Life of Brian, where he's just constantly talking. That's his character here, which is completely opposite of what he was playing in A Fish Called Wanda, where he had a stutter and he wasn't talking a lot. But you get him talking about politics and science, and he just goes up. It's hilarious to me. And Kevin Kline shows up here again. I found him a lot more enjoyable here. In A Fish Called Wanda, he was kind of like the badass, tough guy character, but when I look at Kevin Kline, I don't know, I always just see kind of this sneezing little weasel of a character, so him doing that in this movie makes more sense to me. I was also wondering in the beginning why he was playing both Vince and Rod McCain. I'm like, why was this the decision being made? And then you get to the climax of this movie and you go, oh, that is the only reason why that is happening. Well, it worked here, I guess. The only actor that's really underserved in this movie is Jamie Lee Curtis. She's fine, she's not terrible, but, I mean, her character has not the most growth out of all the other ones. But I also like this movie more because it has a lot more adorable animals in here, and it has a lot bigger of an ensemble cast of all these zookeepers at the zoo in this movie. And I know I gave the obligatory fuck you to the Rusted Beetles for A Fish Called Wanda because there were animal deaths and puppies being killed, and in the first 10 minutes of this movie, it is insinuated that John Cleese's character shoots 5 the most adorable animals that you've ever seen and buries them. And I was almost like, oh my god, Rusted Beetles, what are you doing? I don't want to see animals or just talk about animals being shot. Why are you recommending these movies to me? But it's all a smoke screen. He's actually hiding the animals in his apartment, so I'm like, oh, thank God. Not again! It was a close one, Rusted Beetles. It was a close one. But again, for me, the biggest improvement with this film to A Fish Called Wanda is the pacing. This thing clips along and feels like it is moving along at 100 miles an hour, whereas A Fish Called Wanda felt like it was just trudging. We're going 15 down an interstate. A lot of innuendos, a lot of revolving doors and mistaken identities, the disappearing handbag effect where an item is being passed from character to character to character to character, not knowing who has it or where the actual thing is going to end up in the end. All of that works for me here. I love this movie way more than A Fish Called Wanda. I'm weird, I know. I don't know what's wrong with me, but it's just my preference. I'm gonna give Fierce Creatures 3 out of 5 Blu-rays.
Not exactly what I had in mind, but not bad.
Alright everyone, now comes my favorite part of my videos where I pick which movie I'm going to be watching next, and the next one we're going to be checking out is another recommendation from Mr. and Mrs. Rusted Beetle. They had sent in a bunch of recommendations at the end of the year in 2021, but I was doing my whole Spider-Man series, so everything kind of had to be pushed back to January, so we're kind of cramming all of these recommendations in. So thank you very much everyone for being patient. Mr. and Mrs. Rusted Beetle, thank you again for your support. You recommended a movie called The Good, The Bad, and The Weird, which seems like they're on an Asian action comedy type run here. They had also recommended Kung Fu Hustle that I reviewed earlier this week, and this one feels like it's the same effect, except with action martial arts movies. We have what seems to be a parody on the Western. I mean, it would make sense. The Good, the Bad, the Weird is definitely a parody on The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I'm sure many people on this channel who has checked out my review of that are absolutely gonna love this one because I loved that movie so much. But we'll check it out next time. So guys, have you seen Fierce Creatures? What did you think about it? And if you've seen both Fierce Creatures and A Fish Called Wanda, which one do you like better? And if it disagrees with me, please let me know politely why you disagree, and comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit that bell so you know the next time I'll release my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time with my review of The Good, The Bad, and The Weird. So in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.